And thank you for the opportunity to come here today to speak to all of you. So I will briefly explain you these principles that come out from our paper that was published, that Sara already explained to you. And I think it's important that we go through these principles, as they will, of course, later on be more discussed also during the panel discussions. So there are 6 principles, and you can see them on the screen: trust, access, human centricity, innovation, competence, and sharing. Now, if you start with the first one, and the trust, I think this has been discussed or in many different panels and discussions, and the trust is a must, is something that we have heard a long time. But especially when we are talking about this personal gathered data that we are talking today, it's even more vital, because it's the citizens that actually have the only one who has access to their own data when they are collecting it with wearables or some other means. And without this trust, it's impossible to actually get access to that data that they are having. The second point is then the access, and that we in this fair data economy actually provide these access services, and we provide it to customers and partners in this fair data ecosystem. And we also need to have effective tools for the management of the data. So they are all part of this access principle, that we need to have those in place. And even without that access, of course, we cannot create those services that are needed. I think the third one is with the trust. I think some of most important within these principles, it's human centricity. And in this principle, it actually means that the services that we create are created from the individual perspective. They are not created from a system perspective or from the point of view of the company, but actually thinking who is the customer and what are the genuine needs and what are the life circumstances that these services will be used and needed. So it's all about this user centricity, human centricity. The fourth one, the innovation, is important and sometimes maybe misunderstood also. And Sara already mentioned that in these fair data ecosystems and fair data economy, everybody needs to benefit, everybody needs to get value. And this fourth bullet point, fourth principle is all about this. Now, the fifth one is I think something that might be evident for all of you, that the competence needs to be there. But since in a fair data economy, you don't build lock-ins and the service exchange is quite easy. The individuals can change service providers. Also, it's easy to provide new services. You need to be up to speed all the time. You need to increase your competencies. So the continuous development of the competencies is actually important, because there's also competition in the market. So I think this fifth bullet point is something that you need in order to stay in a business. Now the sixth one, the sharing is something that is also linked to the innovations. In the fair data economy, the sharing is something that is in the core of the whole ecosystem and in the fair data economy. And the innovations actually are born between the companies, between the organizations. And the sharing of data is actually something that's needed in order to create these new services for the future. So these are the 6 principles, and they are well thought, and I think there is value in them, and actually understanding how they work is something that is the foundation to understand how the fair data economy functions and how the services for the future will be created. So we took these 6 principles and we actually asked around 100 Finnish ecosystems or participants of current Finnish ecosystems of what they think about these principles and if they bring competitive advantage for them at the moment. And the results were not that good. So if you look at the left-hand side, this is the situation as is. So it's quite mediocre how they think that these principles bring them value today. Especially if you look at the last one, the sharing, then nobody thinks that sharing is that important at the moment. So it's more about having the data for yourself for innovating rather than sharing and creating innovations with others. But then we pose the same question for them and how they see this developing within this decade, and how is the situation in 2030. So although they were skeptical about today, but they saw the future bringing these principles as the core of their competitive advantage. So you need to get this right to be successful for the future. So this is my message for today, and I don't know if you agree on this, but at least the Finnish stakeholders thought that these are needed in the future. So back to Sara.
Thank you, Markus. And our second poll question is there a competitive advantage in complying with the 6 principles of fair data economy? So please go ahead and answer the Menti again, and we shall look at the results immediately and have a glance what you think. That was the Finnish stakeholders that Markus was presenting how they saw it. I can see perhaps and yes there, but more perhaps. So it's a bit of a question mark still. What needs to happen? We can ask what needs to happen to make it a competitive advantage, but it's nice to see your results. And again, if you want to elaborate, please put it in the chat a bit more, and we can continue the discussion there as well.